Hey guys, my name is Kaitlyn, and for my senior share today, I wanted to tell you guys my story because it's very powerful and God's really worked through my time here at university. So, when I was a freshman, I was very quiet. For those of you who don't know, I was a very quiet person when I was a freshman. I came into Whitewater immediately wanting to leave, immediately counting the days, the years, how long it will take for me to be able to leave. It was really hard. I was clinging to a lot of things, and so it was very difficult to be away from them. First of all, like my home, I was very attached to my home life and my family, and so that was really hard being away from them. And I also had a job back home. I worked at Hobby Lobby, and so I was always going back home to work on the weekends. And I also had a relationship back home that was really important to me, that took a lot of priority in my life, and so that felt like it was more important than anything here. But I knew I had to be here, and so I was here. My freshman year, I had a very hectic schedule. I had lots of really heavy classes, and I also went home like a lot. Like I would leave like Thursday as soon as my class got done, and I wouldn't come back until like Monday right before my next class. Like I would spend almost half of my time at home. And because of that, I made sure to get my homework done while I was here, and so that was a thing. But my roommate, Alicia, invited me to life group, and I decided I could spare the hour and a half it took to do that, and so I came with her to life group. In this time of my life, I wasn't very close to God. I didn't really have a relationship with him. I came from a Christian school, Christian background, so I grew up knowing the importance of God, but I didn't have like a personal relationship with him. And so I was very interested to see the people in the life group and how much they valued their faith, especially my life group leader, Gina. It was very inspiring and powerful, but it wasn't enough to convince me to give up the things that I was clinging to, and so I still wasn't really invested. As soon as the year ended, I ran back home, super ready to be done with the year, and then as soon as the summer was about to end, I started realizing there was a lot that I had to work through. I was having issues in that relationship I mentioned earlier, and it kind of occurred to me that that relationship was becoming way too important. And so that was really hard. It was basically my entire identity. And so losing that was really hard because I kind of had to realize who I was without this person in my life. And I also was terrified to go back to school. I knew that it was going to be really hard. I knew it was going to be really lonely, especially without this person in my life to be able to count on anymore. And so I was terrified. I had breakdowns, like panic attacks coming back. I knew that something had to change if I was going to survive my sophomore year, and so I decided that I would do the only thing I could and start investing in my relationship with God and start investing in university. And so I did. I came here and decided, okay, I'm going to find a life group, I'm going to seek one out. I had two that I didn't know how to pick which one I was going to go to, so then I ended up going to both. And that was really good because I had tastes of community twice a week at life group, and then I also started forcing myself to go to Epic. I didn't go to Epic my freshman year. I went once and was terrified because there was a lot of people, and so I didn't come back, but I forced myself to go to Epic consistently, and the more I went, the less scary it became, and the more connected I felt to the community, and so I was really glad about that. When fall conference came around, I had to make a decision. I was planning on hanging out with my person, and that didn't work out because fall conference was that day, and I had to decide between this person and fall conference. And I decided to go to fall conference. I had a lot of people telling me it was worth it, and so I decided to make that sacrifice. And that was the first sacrifice that I've probably ever made for God in my life, and I did not regret it. After that, I started feeling a lot more connected to the community, and I started turning to God in every way that I could. My sophomore year was probably the hardest year of my life so far. I was struggling with severe anxiety, depression, like I just didn't want to live. I hated myself, like it was really hard. And all I knew to do to fix that was to go to God. And so I was just thirsty for him. I just poured into him. I did everything I possibly could to grow close to God. My sophomore year, I was discipled by Rachel, and through that, I learned, okay, I want to grow close to God. What does that look like? How do I do that? And she helped me figure out how to do that. She helped me learn how to grow in my relationship with God, how to engage in scripture and pray and continue to do things consistently. That's when I started doing quiet times, and that I've seen a lot of fruit through that. By the end of sophomore year, I was a different person than I was at the beginning. I was much closer to God. I was growing. I was making sacrifices, making commitments, and I was invited into leadership. At least Rachel kind of talked to me about it and was like, would you possibly be interested? And I told her no. I was like, oh no, I have to go home every weekend still, I got a job, and, I couldn't possibly. So I did not accept the call to leadership my sophomore year. Even though God was inviting me to make that choice, I didn't. But I did come into my junior year ready to put my all into NSO. I put all of my energy into it. It was probably the most social I'd ever been in my life that far, and I felt really good. I really enjoyed talking to people, and like for someone who thought, I used to think I was the quietest person ever, and instead I discovered that I actually had a heart for meeting new people. And junior year, I met a lot of really awesome people who are now like my closest friends now. I started growing in my relationship with God, started growing with the people in our chapter, started developing relationships, deep relationships. And I also got involved in the worship team my junior year, which I saw a lot of fruit through that. I started finding joy in worshiping God. By the end, well, probably more in the middle of my junior year, I started realizing that God was asking me to make some sacrifices. I felt the call to leadership again, and I also felt the call to go on a mission trip, which I told you guys about before, and those are really scary and involved a lot of sacrifices, but I decided to make them. I decided that God knew what he was doing, that I was ready for this, and so I decided I was going to say yes to everything from now on, no longer going to say no to anything. That summer, I went back to Hobby Lobby, and that was the last time I worked there. Well, I did work there over winter break, but I decided to quit my job, and that was really hard because I had to trust God with my finances, and I no longer had a income that I could rely on, and that was really difficult, but I decided to do that as an act of trust for God. And so I saw a lot of fruit through that. Coming back senior year, you guys probably know the rest. I was a leader, and it was amazing. I saw God work in so many ways, and especially through my life group. And so that's just been amazing. Yeah, I've also had so many opportunities to spread my faith, which I'd never done before the mission trip. And I saw God work in so many ways through that. And I don't have time to talk about them, but I did want to leave you guys with a question. There's a lot of power in testimonies, and I think that's something that I've learned through my story is sometimes God asks you to make sacrifices, and sometimes he asks you to submit things to his lordship, things that are hard. I had to submit that relationship to his lordship, and that was really hard. I had to submit my finances to his lordship, and that was really hard. And so the question I want to leave you guys with is, what might God be asking you to sacrifice so that he can use you more? So I'm just going to leave you guys with that, but thanks for listening.